How do you achieve killer app retention rates? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds. My name is John Koetsier. Today we're chatting with a mobile growth expert who has decided to focus on retention. We're going to look at 4 different frameworks that help you approach the challenge of retention from different angles. He's a former product marketing manager for Balance, which won Google's Best App Award in 2021. He's held senior growth roles at Level Up and Amwell, and was the director of growth marketing for Automattic's mobile app. If you don't know Automattic, they're the company behind WordPress that powers almost half the web. He's also the author of retention.blog, and his name is Jacob Rushfinn. Welcome, Jacob.
Thanks, John. Excited to chat with you today and be here.
So am I. I am not a frameworks person at all. I'm like, ad hoc, intuitive, jump in. What do I see? Awesome. Let's dive in there, go there. And so I kind of like looking at frameworks and seeing, okay, that's the other side of the world. That's how different people do stuff. So I'm looking forward to diving into that and giving people essentially 4 tools in their toolbox to, look at retention issues. Before we do that, let's start with you just a little bit. What made you get interested in retention?
Yeah, well, I think, I started my marketing career focusing on really email marketing, kind of data analytics and, super manual stuff of, writing a SQL query to download a CSV audience, to upload the email marketing tool to send out. And, initially, just building these audiences, but then slowly over time with these kind of, analytical skills and the SQL skills, you begin to dig a little deeper, and someone comes to you with a question of what's happening with this, this app, what's happening with this segment of users. And you go, oh, I think I can answer that. And then you start to love this discovery and digging of kind of this questions and what's really happening with your user base. And then slowly you kind of use that a little more to build out better marketing campaigns. And so for a while, really focusing on kind of lifecycle marketing to kind of drive retention and monetization. But, I think I always found that I was never satisfied with email marketing or push notification impact on retention. And, the really retention is so built on the product experience, right? That's the most impactful thing. Do you have a great product? And I was never ever satisfied with the scope of my roles. So I would slowly inch over to someone else's territory or, not good at staying in my lane. And so, I would try to influence the product experience or the roadmap or I think, because a lot of times, product is prioritizing kind of core features. And I'm like, how about we change this onboarding flow so I can get higher conversion rates here? And so over time, I got, more involved in holistic retention and kind of monetization. I also, I worked for a few B2B2C companies. And so often with B2B2C companies, the real driver of company growth is the B2B sales motion. But you have this consumer experience as well, and that can often be neglected. And so I would often use that as an opportunity to step more into the consumer experience world, step more into product conversion optimization, because there was kind of a void there of real wealth and experience. And so I got a lot of opportunities to kind of do that more product work, even though I was usually in a more marketing role. And, I just loved it. I love the combination of psychology and, quantitative analysis and research. And so, I get bored quickly. So I like the working on many different types of things and many different types of problems.
I like people who can't stay in their lane. They become generalists, and many of the problems that need to be solved for businesses require knowing more than one thing and having expertise in more than one thing and seeing across different silos. So that's really, really good. I'm tempted to get into an SQL versus SQL debate, but that's like GIF and GIF, so we won't dive into that. I started off by saying I'm not a frameworks guy. I'm just not. I just never have been. It's just not kind of my mentality and how I approach challenges and stuff. I'm more of a creativity person. But let's ask you, since you're using some frameworks, what's the value of a framework? I mean, if I look at it abstractly, it looks like, hey, if I don't know how to tackle something, I can apply this tool and see what it gets me. I can apply a different tool and see what it gets me. I also have a structured way of approaching a problem, those sorts of things. Talk about the value of a framework.
Yeah. I think one interesting way to think about it is that's how they say like standing on the shoulders of giant. You are kind of like this great frameworks are kind of this aggregation or accumulation of maybe someone's like whole career where they've distilled down these learnings from years and years of experience into these kind of quick steps or processes or ways of thinking about things. And so I think it's interesting to think about it like that, where you go, okay, well, how would this person solve this problem? Okay, what frameworks do they use? What frameworks do they develop? You can kind of pull on someone else's experience. And so I think that's a cool way of thinking about it. I also, I often kind of tend to be more like you and more creative and think more abstractly sometimes. So sometimes I force myself to use frameworks because it can get me down like rabbit holes and so it's like almost fighting my inner nature of trying to solve every problem for myself and reinvent the wheel, where it's like, I'm making this more difficult than it needs to be. Let's just, go back to basics. And so I think I think about it like that sometimes too, where, I don't need to reinvent how to think about everything. Someone's figured out this problem. Let me work on the differentiators, the problems I really want to solve versus these known or the solved kind of ways of doing things.
I kind of love that. It's funny because the alternative is like, everything is unique. My problem is totally unique. My challenges are completely different from anybody else's. And of course, that's obviously not true. And the challenges that apps face, especially in similar verticals for getting people to engage and start and subscribe and maybe even pay or other things like that, are often similar. There are specificities, of course, and so there are differences. Let's start going through some of them. There's 4 different ones that you recently blogged about that you like for analyzing retention. As you say in your blog, you say, hey, some are for decision making, some are for user psychology, some are for problem solving. Let's go through them one by one. Here's the first one, the Psych framework by Darius, Contractor.
Yeah. Had you seen this framework before? Have you used it before?
I have not used it before. And the first time I saw it was when I read it in your blog post.
Love it. That's awesome. So I came across Psych a number of years ago, I think, maybe through Reform, where Andrew Chen and Brian Balfour, I think Andrew Chen shared a post, and I think Darius Contractor may have been kind of a part of Reforge. He may still be, I forget, but it's a very cool framework. I think it may have even been part of a Reforge course. I forget, but I wrote about it for a number of years, but it's a very interesting kind of way to quantify emotion in a kind of a landing page or a conversion funnel, where the gist of it is that you are going through maybe a landing page, I think is the easiest way to start. And for each element on the page, you are kind of assigning the Psych score. Is this element generating positive or negative emotions? And you could kind of use that to understand, will people convert? Because we think that, people aren't rational, right? We as marketers, we should know that very well. Decision making.
We are rational. Everybody else is irrational.
Right. Exactly. Everybody else is wrong. I do it but decision making starts with emotions. We feel good about something, and then we kind of backwards rationalize it. Go, okay, I want to do this because I feel happy or feel good or excited. Now let me figure out what reasons what I can pull in to back up those emotions to make it convince myself it's a good decision. And so, you can think about it as influencing people, whatever. But this is marketing, and so so for a tangible example, you have your landing page and you're starting at the title. Like, is your headline copy fun and exciting? Does it get people going? Okay, you click to the next page. Do you have an attractive offer? Are you offering a discount? Yes. Okay. +5 point. Okay, you're asking for my email. Oh, okay, well, -5 points. I don't really want to give you that, but if I have. Okay, now you're asking me for my credit card right after that. Okay, -10 points. Uh, and so, this isn't and so the idea is that you add up all these points, add up these positive emotions and negative emotions you get, and like ideally you get to a positive score. It's not really an exact science, right? It's not like we're inventing numbers here to add, but it's a really useful tool to analyze someone's emotions. Where how do you like quantitatively measure emotions? It's pretty hard, right? You can kind of go through it yourself and what am I feeling? But if you kind of assign these scores and really break down each element on a page, you can really start to understand opportunities, and then you can understand, okay, um, I'm asking for someone's email, I'm asking for someone's credit card or some other piece of information. Let me build up positive emotions before we get to that point to balance out the negative emotions that of sharing some piece of information or entering a credit card. And so I think this great kind of conversion optimizers kind of use this of going, all right, I know this is a painful point. How can I build up investment or build up energy in my users or customers to kind of get across this painful hump because they have enough momentum, because they're feeling good about what I'm selling or offering.
Super interesting. It seems like it'd be a good diagnostic to just take a look at your onboarding flow, whether that leads through, a little bit of instruction, whether that leads through a little demo or, you get a free 7-day trial or whatever that leads to, and just look at, okay, what is our psych score? As you've done this, and I understand it's not an exact science, if you get plus 10, you automatically get an engaged user who subscribes and buys $1 million. Not an exact science like that, but as you've done this and applied this to various apps, what would you say is a psych score that is indicative of generally people continuing?
Well, I think the score is the wrong way to think about it. I think it's more just when I usually do it, I don't usually assign real numbers. I just go positive or negative.
Hmm.
And so if you usually have more positive elements than negative elements, that's a good place to start. And so I think that's a little simplification. It's like, it's hard to go, okay, like this equals this amount of positive emotions. And so I usually just go minus, plus, minus, or neutral.
Yes. Yes.
And then and then, you can see, okay, well, okay, that's not good. There's a lot of negative things here. No wonder we're not having a good conversion rate or, okay, we have a lot of positive things in the beginning of onboarding, but we don't have these positive touch points like testimonials or awards or social proof, closer to the paywall where you really need it. And so that kind of helps visualize, where in this flow, is there more opportunity to kind of improve conversion? Is it balanced throughout? Are you really weighted here? And people forget about those kind of positive accolades or social proof or the value of your app because you put them in all in the beginning. And then when they get to the paywall, they're like, okay, you've just been asking me questions for the last 5 minutes. Like, I don't really feel like purchasing now.
I love it. It's also something you can apply at any stage in your app, I'm assuming, right? As people move through maybe a core loop in a game, maybe something that you do, maybe in all trails, for instance, looking at trails. What are the positives that accumulate? What are the positives? What are the negatives? What are the downsides? What are the pain points? So you can look at a lot of different things there. Makes a ton of sense. Anything else about that before we move on to the next one?
No, I mean, check it. Just Google it. Check it out. There's a great kind of blog post detailing it all. I think it's super helpful, and I think it can be really transformative and kind of a shortcut to your thinking.
Cool. Okay, let's go on to framework number 2. You've called this one RICE prioritization, and RICE is an acronym: reach, impact, confidence, effort. Talk about RICE. What is it? How's it work?
Yes. So, I use this price prioritization in a lot of different areas. This can be for product things. This can be for larger projects. It can be for different marketing campaigns. But it's a kind of more holistic way to think about what you should do first. A lot of times people talk about what's the largest impact. Okay, well, that's not exactly the right way to think about it, because it's really high impact, but you're only reaching 10% of your audience. So is that really the right thing to do? And so, maybe some people think about impact more broadly, but it's really, you want to think about reach. How many people is this feature, is this campaign potentially going? How many people are going to see it? Impact. Is this a big change? Is this a small change? Are we doubling price? Are we offering a 50% discount? Are we adding one line of copy on some random page? Some things are obviously higher impact and lower impact. You can't know for certain. Some things, surprise you, but generally you can put a score on high or low impact. And then one I think that is actually really important that people don't use a lot is confidence. Is this idea likely to work? Why do you think it's likely to work? Because you came up with the idea and you're a genius and everything you do is great? Well, maybe we should be a little less confident. Exactly. And so, but like, we all do that, right? We all think our ideas are great. And so confidence, honestly, is one of the hardest ones to really be confident about. But you can pull in data, you can pull in, what's worked for you in the past. Are your competitors doing similar things? Are other companies doing similar things? Is this a known tactic? Is this something brand new that you're trying? And so you can usually get a relatively decent score. And then also like pull in others to help gauge that confidence score where you're always biased. So running it by somebody else. And the last one is effort. Does this cost money? Do you need engineers? How much time is this going to take? And so kind of the combination of all of those things, resources, all of those things. And so you multiply reach times impact times confidence, and then divide that by effort to get your right score. And go ahead.
And do you estimate for reaches? Do you do that like out of 10 impact? Is that 1 to 10?
Actually,
Confidence
5.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 is. I feel like 10 is like you get stuck in. Is it a 6 or a 7? Or 5 is like medium, high, very high, low. And so it's a little easier where you don't need to be exactly accurate. 5 is enough where once you multiply and divide, you're going to get a good range, and you're going to things are going to flow to the top, things are going to sink to the bottom.
So let's say you had a list of maybe 10 different ideas that could impact retention. You could run each of them through the RICE score. Then you could stack rank them. And then you could say, okay, hey, based on this, we should start with these 2 or 3 first. And those 2 or 3, maybe we'll never even get to them. Is that correct?
Yeah. And when I'm, this is, related, but like when I'm prioritizing and brainstorming new ideas, I usually try to come up with 2 to 3 times as many ideas as we can realistically do. We want ideas that we're never going to do, because that means we're really picking the most impactful one. If we come up with as many ideas as we can do, just prioritize those, we get all of our ideas done, you're probably missing something. And you're probably doing things that aren't the most impactful. So really, in your prioritization, if you aren't getting rid of things and aren't doing them ever, you're not really prioritizing well. And that's the hard part of going.
We have all been on those teams where everything is a top priority, right? Everything is A, and there might be 1, 2, 3, but it's all an A1 or an A2 or an A3. Everything is important because, she wants that one, he wants that one, she wants that one, he wants that one. We don't want to hurt any feelings, so it's all critical.
Yep. And so it's actually a good point, because this is just the first step. This is often internally with your team, you're doing this RICE prioritization framework because look, we don't live in a perfect world. You have other stakeholders, you have other people saying, actually, this needs to go higher, or you want to keep up relationships with another team and you want to prioritize and get their things done so they can do things for you in the future. And so this isn't the end all be all, but this is a data point and a really good one as a starting point to understand things. And yeah, I think one other problem I found with the Rice prioritization framework, as much as I love it, is that sometimes you get a lot of quick wins based on the framework. You know, it just happens
So
that,
this is
okay,
a
we're reaching.
problem. You don't like winning and you don't like quick.
I like quick wins, but you need to balance your bets, right? And so we need to have maybe 50% quick wins, but then we also need to take some big shots that we're a little less confident about, have higher impact, but like the effort's high also. And so it has a little lower score, but like, we need to take these big swings. And so I've also added a step after of, okay, we have our prioritization, but like we have too many little quick things. We need to take some bigger bets. And then so I kind of manually sort a little bit and go, okay, let's figure out our experiment mix, our project mix, and get that a little more balanced. So we have the more equal sizing of projects too. And that's one thing I've just kind of learned over the years of doing this. Maybe it's in my ranking, I don't know, but I found that helpful to because everybody, you can't do all big bets, but like you should do at least one or two each quarter, each year, whatever period to try to really make a large difference in your
I
team.
think that makes a ton of sense, and I absolutely love that. The other thing that I like about this Rice approach is that, because I mentioned earlier, right, everybody loves their own little pet project, right? And so we sit around the table or on a Zoom call or something like that. Which one are we going to do? Well, this one's super important to her. This one's super important to him. How do you balance? If you can do Rice, then you can take the emotions out of it a little bit. You can take the personality out of it a little bit. You can make it a little more analytical. And so that makes sense. And then absolutely love it. You got to take some big shots, and half of those are going to fail. Half of those might actually be the basis for your differentiation in the space. Cool. Your third framework is actually about prioritization as well. And I guess that's because it's hard to prioritize, right? It's hard. There's so many, we all have more than we can get done in a day, right? And that's no different for a marketing team or a product team, anything like that. But this one is from Eisenhower, the World War II general, and then U.S. president. Talk about this one.
Yeah, and completely agree with prioritization being so critical. I think, I've most of my career has been in startups, and in startups, the name of the game is prioritization and focus. And so if you can't do that well, nothing else really matters. And so, I learned this one a while ago. I'm not sure where I picked it up. Obviously not a new framework. It's been around for a bit. But it's kind of this, 2x2 matrix. And so you've got a way to kind of rank and sort your tasks. You've got urgent and important tasks. You've got important but not urgent tasks. These are the long-term thing, but they don't have to be done today. Urgent and important is there's a fire. We need to put that out. Something's breaking. We need to do that right now, and it's important. Then you've got urgent but not important. Your boss's boss asks for a report. You need to do it, but like, not really. It's not really going to make a difference. And then we've got not urgent and not important. And so going back to not doing things, if it's not urgent and it's not important, throw it out. And so it's kind of a quick ranking of what should I do today? What should I do this week? What should I do this month? I use it in more professional life. Sometimes I try to use it in my personal life and get in trouble. Sometimes different people think some things are important. Not everyone assigns the same important score. But that's separate. And so, going down and really thinking about the urgent and the important and what's that balance? And like, often these important but not urgent things get left behind, and you really want to make time for that in your day, in whatever, in your month, because those long-term are going to be huge difference makers for your work. They're foundational things that add extra efficiencies, that set the stage for, really cool future wins. But they're so hard to prioritize above the urgent but not important, or the urgent and important, just the urgent thing. And so honestly, I think that's the most valuable part of this framework, of understanding what's important but not urgent, and making sure you make time.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was with a company for a long time that was affiliated with the Franklin Covey Company, which had Stephen R. Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was a big business personal book, probably 15 years ago or something like that. And
It's
and
still
quadrant
huge.
2, which is this, it's not urgent, but it is important. I think he called that the quadrant of value, right? That's where there's really important stuff. It's not ringing. There's no phone, there's no alarm. You can put it off, put it off, put it off, and you may not even feel the impact of it immediately. But if you do it all the time, then you're going to have some quadrant ones. And those things that were important but not urgent will become urgent and important. And then you've got to solve them toot sweet, essentially, instantly. So love that. That's really, really good. Cool. Let's get into the fourth one. And this one is Elena Verna's conversion rate decline diagnostic. So the scenario here, I'm guessing, is, hey, you're looking at your conversion rate or you're looking at your retention rate and it's going south. There's bad things happening to it. You got to do something about it. But what? How do you deal with it? Talk about Elena Verna's conversion rate decline diagnostic.
Yeah, and I maybe stretched a little bit. I'm not sure if this qualifies as a framework, but we're calling it a framework. I think if we anointed a framework, and from now on
There you
it
go.
can't.
Done.
Yeah, and I think I don't think she'll mind. And so originally I found this with the Reforged artifacts. I should get we should get a Reforge sponsorship here. I'm just plugging Reforge all over, but they don't really need it. Everyone knows Reforge is awesome, but so they released a free feature where people upload their kind of tools and processes and kind of artifacts of things they've done in their career. She uploaded this, and I came across it, and when your conversion rate declines, when performance drops, when monetization decreases, this goes into our previous framework. This is urgent and important. And so this gets prioritized, but it's so hard to understand what's actually happening.
Yeah.
In our digital world, there's so many different potential options of what are all the inputs. And I love this systematic approach where it's a simple kind of flow chart, a little yes-no flow chart, but it breaks down a great process for really digging into a conversion rate decline. And so her kind of flow is, first start with checking your data quality. I think we miss this a lot. Like, is there a data issue? We first go, what's wrong? What's happening? What changed? We go, okay, well, is this data even right? And so that's the first thing we should check. And I love that because I'm sure we've both been there where we spend days, weeks, who knows how long trying to figure out something. And we realize, oh, this database stopped syncing a week ago. There's nothing wrong, or something.
Or just the different way you pull data or different way you look at data gives you different answers, and you've got to really dig into it and talk to a lot of people to understand what is the actual most useful way of getting this data and getting it the most accurate so it can be actionable.
Yeah, exactly. And so once you found out, okay, the data's good, then we go, is this a meaningful trend? People get scared quickly and go, oh my God, conversion rate dropped by 10% today. Okay, well, that's kind of within our natural variance. We see it was up 5% yesterday. How about what's the weekly average? Is this a meaningful trend over time? Do we pay attention to this or is this kind of just a red herring of, because things change, things go up and down, just natural fluctuations and variance. So, okay, now we've verified, is it meaningful? Is it significant? It is. All right, let's keep digging. Then is it seasonal? Sometimes if I started a new company, I may not have all the last year's history of going, oh my God, it's July, our conversion rate's, down 20% since January. We're getting 20% less traffic. And they go, yeah, that happens every year. I go, okay, all right, fine.
Why do Saturdays and Sundays always have less perks?
Right, right, exactly, exactly. And so, okay, so it's not seasonality. Keep digging. All right. And so, did we have a big release recently? Did something change? Is what you look at next. And I think often people jump to this one. I often do. Of did something change? What changed? And it's not a bad thing to jump to first, to be honest. But and so was there a release? Did the most recent build break something? Can you kind of correlate this drop with this release? Yes, no, okay, yes. All right, well, let's roll that back and figure out what
that could
happened.
be in your product, did something change, but it could also be in your acquisition sources. You just brought on a big new source, and it turns out that it's a different cohort of people, and they want something different. They do something different. They act different. They just are different in your app.
Yeah, yeah. And you're jumping ahead there. That's the
Oh,
next
sorry.
one.
Yes.
You're on top of it. And so yeah, the next one she has is did something change with customer acquisition? And I think these are often two biggies, right? And that just emphasizes the importance of staying connected across teams. For your marketing team, are you staying connected with product? For product, are you staying connected with marketing? You are sharing information. You know what's going on, and so you can kind of diagnose it quickly. And so okay, man, we've checked 5 things now. We're still not there. Next one is related, but did the channel mix change? So maybe are you spending less or more, but like, did you shift channels? Are you now spending, more on TikTok than Facebook? And did you not realize TikTok had lower quality users that aren't converting as well? Maybe marketing just did this without telling you. And now you're going, what's happening? And they go, oh yeah, that was a test. Sorry. And
Yeah, and your
but
UA
that
guys
happens a lot.
metrics are off the charts, right? And everything is awesome.
Right, exactly. So, so that's a common one. Yeah, definitely been there. And then I think next, okay, we still haven't figured it out. It's none of these things. Next, let's start with some segmentation. And is it certain audiences? Is it certain countries? What is really happening here? Is it only certain users affected? And so I think there's so many different segments of audiences that you can branch out from there. But really, I usually, if you haven't figured out then, that's the main thing left. And I think she has a few other kind of branches after that. But really, that's like a really rock solid process. And if you're not figuring out what's wrong before then, she says basically start over the process. And so I didn't actually list out there's a few nuances past the kind of user segmentation, but like starting with what country, what age, just high level segmentation. And a lot of times that will, if not find it, help point you in the right direction. One time we saw that we had changed, one flow in the product, and the change didn't materialize over time. And it was like the users with a certain goal, and only those users with that goal affected. And we hadn't, and so we noted, okay, so segmenting by all these different characteristics, all these different factors. And it's, if you have a decent tool, it usually doesn't take that long. And then you point you in the right direction to kind of uncover what.
Very cool. That's 4 frameworks. That's 4 ways of looking at issues and 4 ways of fixing retention, conversion rate changes, all that stuff. Quantify for us as we come to a close here the impact of better retention. I mean, like objectively or subjectively, we all kind of get it, right? The more users I keep, the fewer I have to get, the less leaky my bucket is, the less I have to spend to fill it up and fill it up and fill it up all the time. The longer I have users and they're engaged, the more likely I am to be able to monetize them in a variety of different ways. But can you quantify some of that for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you did a pretty good job right there, but I can try to add on that. Yeah. So, I work with a lot of subscription businesses, and in that world, retention is the name of the game, right? Like monthly renewals, and annual renewals. but then also early engagement and early retention. So I really find that I work mostly in consumer. I think, that's mostly kind of, what I think you focus on as well. And so in consumer, you're like day 1, day 7, day 28 retention pretty much predicts the entire kind of life cycle of the user. Are they going to stay around? Are they going to monetize? And okay, is day 28 retention good? But really for individual user levels, you can go back to just day 1. Did they do anything? How long was their first session? That's usually super predictive of longer term usage and retention as well. And so, we see that, your, first week, first month of a cohort's retention is also pretty predictive of their, let's say, annual renewal rates. And so if you're starting, with subscription products, especially when you're starting off, but also when you're making changes, a year is a long time to wait for data. It's really tough to optimize on it with a yearly feedback cycle. But you don't really have to wait that long. Usually, if you notice retention dipping in the first 7 days, in the first month, you're probably going to have an issue later on. And this is talking about, engagement, not like monthly churn for your subscription product, but just, early engagement. And if you're noticing for that new weekly cohort of users that's lower, you can probably predict in a year your annual renewal rates for your subscription are going to be lower, and just you're going to have fewer users coming back. And so retention is a long-term battle. It's you never stop trying to retain your users, you never stop trying to engage. But the first kind of hill you have to die on is that onboarding and that new user experience. If you don't have that nailed down, you have kind of no hope for long-term retention, which makes sense. Why would someone stay around if they don't know what's happening, if they don't understand the value? You can email them all you want, you send as many push notifications as you want, but we're not going to come back just because maybe if you give me a really good discount, but usually no. And so, I know that's not exactly quantifying everything super precisely, but I'll leave it with, really focus on building a great first and early product experience, focus on a great onboarding flow. And if you have a decent product, just decent or good, doesn't have to be great, but if you have a great early user experience, you'll be ahead of somebody with a great product, but a really poor user experience.
I can buy that. I absolutely can buy that. And if you can match the two together, some truly magical things can happen. I just had a VP of strategy from Weltery on, and they're in the wellness and fitness space, which is notoriously challenging. As I recently found out, it's like the gym experience, right? Everybody signs up and then they cancel in the second month when they discover that they don't like working out. And the Weltery has a 56% 3-year retention rate, which is absolutely astonishingly, ridiculously, insanely high. Anyways, it has been a real pleasure, Jacob, chatting with you, learning a little bit about how to structure your thinking around retention and keeping the users you get. Do really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate having me on. People are interested in kind of seeing these frameworks, check out retention.blog and just search frameworks.